The complete story of the dinosaurs. For more than 160 million years, they ruled this planet. They were the largest creatures ever to walk on land, the fiercest predators ever to hunt, and the most successful group of animals that ever lived. They watched continents drift apart. They survived ice ages and lava floods. They evolved into thousands of forms, from creatures the size of chickens to titans heavier than 10 elephants combined. And then, in a single terrible afternoon, almost all of them were gone. This is the complete story of the dinosaurs. Our story begins around 252 million years ago, in a world you would not recognize. There were no dinosaurs yet. In fact, there was almost nothing at all. The planet had just suffered the worst catastrophe in its entire history, an event scientists call the Great Dying. Massive volcanic eruptions in what is now Siberia poured lava across an area the size of Western Europe. The atmosphere choked with toxic gases. The oceans turned acidic. By the time it was over, 96% of marine species and 70% of land vertebrates had been wiped out. Life on Earth came closer to ending than at any other moment in our planet's existence. But from the ashes, something new began to stir. The continents at this time were fused together into a single enormous landmass called Pangaea, stretching from pole to pole. The climate was hot, the interior was a vast desert, and the survivors of the Great Dying were scrambling to fill the empty world. Among them were small, agile reptiles that walked upright on their hind legs. These were the first dinosaurs. They appeared around 230 million years ago, during the Triassic period. The earliest known dinosaur is a creature called Eoraptor, a slender hunter no larger than a medium-sized dog. Alongside it lived Herrerasaurus, a 6-foot predator that snapped up lizards and early mammal relatives. These first dinosaurs were not the kings of their world, far from it. They shared the landscape with massive crocodile relatives that were faster, larger, and far more numerous. For nearly 30 million years, dinosaurs lived in the shadow of these ancient reptiles, waiting for their chance. That chance came at the end of the Triassic, about 201 million years ago. Another mass extinction struck the planet, this time triggered by the breakup of Pangaea. As the supercontinent began to tear itself apart, lava flooded enormous regions, climate patterns collapsed, and most of the dinosaurs' competitors went extinct. The crocodile relatives were nearly wiped out. The strange amphibians of the early world disappeared. And suddenly, the empty ecological spaces were waiting to be filled. The dinosaurs walked into them and never looked back. This was the dawn of the Jurassic period, and it was a golden age. The climate became warmer and wetter. Lush forests of conifers, ferns, and cycads spread across every continent. New environments opened up, and dinosaurs evolved at extraordinary speed to take advantage of them. Among the most spectacular were the sauropods, the long-necked giants that became the largest animals ever to walk on land. Brachiosaurus stood as tall as a 4-story building, its neck reaching into treetops no other creature could touch. Diplodocus stretched nearly 90 feet from nose to tail, with a whip-like tail that could crack the air like a gunshot. Apatosaurus weighed more than 20 tons. These animals had to eat constantly, stripping forests of leaves day and night, and their footsteps shook the ground for miles. While the giants grazed, the predators evolved to match them. Allosaurus prowled the floodplains of what is now North America, a 30-foot hunter with serrated teeth and powerful arms. Ceratosaurus stalked the same lands, distinguished by the curious horn on its snout. Smaller, faster theropods darted through the underbrush, hunting lizards and early mammals. Plant eaters armed themselves with weapons of their own. Stegosaurus, with its iconic plates and spiked tail, swung its weighted club at any predator foolish enough to approach. The Jurassic also gave us something extraordinary, something most people never realize when they think about dinosaurs. It gave us birds. About 150 million years ago, in the warm lagoons of what is now Germany, a small feathered creature called Archaeopteryx flapped its wings and glided between trees. It had teeth, claws on its wings, and a long bony tail, but it was unmistakably a bird. The line between dinosaur and bird had begun to blur, and it would never sharpen again. Meanwhile, the oceans teemed with their own monsters. Plesiosaurs cruised the waters with their long necks and paddle-like limbs. Ichthyosaurs, shaped like dolphins but with enormous eyes, hunted in the depths. The skies were ruled by pterosaurs, flying reptiles that were not dinosaurs but their close cousins. Some, like Pterodactylus, were the size of crows. Others would grow into the largest flying creatures the world has ever seen. But the greatest age of dinosaurs was still ahead. Around 145 million years ago, the world entered the Cretaceous period, and dinosaur diversity exploded to its absolute peak. The continents had broken apart further, creating isolated landmasses where evolution ran wild in different directions. Each continent became its own laboratory, producing creatures found nowhere else on Earth. A revolution was happening in the plant world too. Flowering plants appeared and quickly spread, transforming landscapes that had been dominated by ferns and conifers for hundreds of millions of years. Insects diversified to pollinate them. Mammals, still small and shrew-like, scurried beneath the giant's feet. And the dinosaurs themselves became more varied, more specialized, and in some cases, more terrifying than ever before. In what is now North America, around 68 million years ago, the king arrived. Tyrannosaurus rex stood 12 feet tall at the hip, stretched 40 feet long, and weighed up to 9 tons. Its skull alone was 5 feet of bone and muscle, packed with banana-sized teeth that could crush bone with a force unmatched by any land animal before or since. Its bite was 3 times more powerful than a modern saltwater crocodile's. It could see better than a hawk, smell better than a bloodhound, and hear in frequencies we can barely imagine. T-Rex was not just a predator, it was a perfectly engineered killing machine. But it was not alone. Across its kingdom roamed creatures of equal wonder. Triceratops carried 3 sharpened horns and a massive bony frill, weighing as much as a school bus. Ankylosaurus was a living tank, covered in bony armor with a club-tipped tail capable of shattering bone. Edmontosaurus traveled in herds of thousands, crossing the land like a feathered tide. Pachycephalosaurus had a skull 10 inches thick, used in headbutting contests we are still trying to understand. Across the world in what is now Mongolia, the Velociraptors hunted in packs, no taller than a turkey, but armed with sickle-shaped claws and intelligence rivaling modern birds of prey. In Africa, Spinosaurus prowled rivers and lagoons, longer than T-Rex and likely the first known semi-aquatic dinosaur, with a sail on its back and a snout like a crocodile. In South America, the long-necked Argentinosaurus reached lengths of over 100 feet, and the predatory Giganotosaurus grew large enough to challenge it. The skies belonged to the pterosaurs, now grown to impossible sizes. Quetzalcoatlus had a wingspan of 40 feet, the size of a small airplane, and stood as tall as a giraffe when grounded. The oceans held the mosasaurs, marine reptiles up to 50 feet long that ruled the seas with crushing jaws and serpentine bodies. It was a world of giants, a world that seemed unstoppable. And then, 66 million years ago, on what was probably an ordinary spring day, the sky fell. A piece of rock and metal at least 10 kilometers wide, a mountain hurtling through space at more than 20 kilometers per second, slammed into what is now the coast of Mexico. The impact released energy equivalent to billions of nuclear bombs detonating at once. A crater more than 100 miles across opened in the seafloor. Tsunamis taller than skyscrapers raced outward. Burning debris rained down across the entire planet, igniting global wildfires within hours. The sound of the impact circled the Earth multiple times, but the shockwave and the fires were not the killers. The real killer was the dust. Vaporized rock and sulfur shot into the upper atmosphere, blocking out the sun. For months, possibly years, the world was plunged into a cold, dark winter. Plants could not photosynthesize. The plants died. The plant eaters starved. The meat eaters that fed on them starved next. In the oceans, the food chain collapsed from the bottom up. Every dinosaur weighing more than about 50 pounds vanished from the fossil record. Pterosaurs, mosasaurs, plesiosaurs, ammonites, all gone. 3/4 of every species on Earth was wiped out. Some scientists believe the dinosaurs were already in trouble before the asteroid arrived. Massive volcanic eruptions in what is now India, called the Deccan Traps, had been pumping toxic gases into the atmosphere for tens of thousands of years. Climate was shifting. Sea levels were changing. The asteroid may not have started the extinction so much as finished what was already underway. We are still piecing together exactly what happened in those final years. But here is the part of the story most people miss. The dinosaurs did not all die. Among the small, feathered theropods that had survived the long winters, A handful of lineages clung on. They were the ancestors of birds. Today, more than 10,000 species of birds live on every continent on Earth. The chickadee at your feeder, the pigeon in the city square, the chicken in your sandwich, every one of them is a living dinosaur. The dinosaurs never really went extinct. They are still here, still everywhere, still flying through the sky their ancestors first conquered 150 million years ago. The mammals took over what was left. Without the giant reptiles to suppress them, our distant ancestors grew larger, smarter, and more diverse. Whales, elephants, primates, and eventually humans. All of us trace our existence to that single asteroid impact. If it had missed, you would not be watching this video. The dinosaurs would still rule, and we would still be tiny shadows in their shadow. We are still learning their story. New species are discovered every week. New techniques reveal what colors they were, what sounds they made, how their hearts pumped, how their young grew. The dinosaurs lived for over 160 million years. Modern humans have existed for about 300,000. They were here, in every meaningful sense, far longer than we will likely ever be. And as we look up at the stars, knowing that another rock is out there somewhere with our number on it, the dinosaurs remind us of something important. No reign lasts forever. No species, no matter how dominant, no matter how perfectly adapted, is guaranteed tomorrow. The dinosaurs ruled for an unimaginable span of time, and they could not see what was coming. But we can. And maybe, just maybe, that makes all the difference.